Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KCS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Well, we're back. Doing this now since 2017 January, so that's over 6, 7, 8 years. Wow, 8.5 years. That's a long time. And
it was like, don't ask me to do the math. Don't ask me to do the math.
I didn't say accounting. And anyway.
Me neither.
That's apparent based on our deficit at Ask Brien. All right, so getting into the show, we do try to help business owners learn something about business. Each week we'll either have somebody teaching a specific subject or teaching something about business that they know a specific area about, or just trying to say, hey, listen, I started company A on my kitchen counter, and now I've got 19 employees, and I'm making $8 million a month, whatever. But that's what we try to do every week. And the name of the show is called Ask Brien, AskBrien, because the only way to spell Brien is with an E. Now, Tracy, that's our co-host, try to explain to me why we have an E in Ask Brien, because nobody spells the name Brien with an E unless you're, that Irish pub down the street.
I'm still stuck on the accounting of having 19 employees and making $1 million a month because I have 19 employees, but I'm not making $1 million a month.
And you're making negative $1 million a month?
And so I really am questioning my math skills. No, I'm so happy to be back. But of course, my favorite E, without exception, is our engineer, Andrew, today. Yay!
Oh, thank you, Tracy. You're so kind. Appreciate it.
And that means that I am the only estrogen in the room today. So that means I will miss Jen tremendously, but I know that she's having a great time on vacation. So, okay. E's are for experts around the Ask Brien radio show, and today is no exception again. I'll throw that one in twice. And experts, as you know, if you've been listening to the show, or if you've just heard this mathematical formula before, which is normally you would need to invest a minimum of 10,000 hours in your specific industry or niche, and that would qualify you as an expert. But, oh, my goodness, Peter, you and I know that any entrepreneur has already invested way more than that because the math itself comes down to like 40 hours a week, over 50-ish weeks a year, which would take like 5 years. And, hey, and by the way, that means we both have over 10,000 hours in the Ask Brien radio show. Yay! We might need another yay, Andrew.
I don't know. Does Andrew have the yay button?
I don't know that makes us experts in radio, though. I don't know. That probably doesn't qualify.
No, but you are an expert in Ask Brien.
I am an expert in Ask Brien, and technically I am an expert in broadcast radio too, because I've got about 30 years experience in that, but we don't need to go there today. So all of that being said, our main focus with our experts is to provide education, and education is the best way to shortcut that learning curve towards expert status. And we also like to get, pretty enthusiastic around here about entrepreneurship.
Excitement!
And yes, listeners, we did warn our guests that would happen. We did.
Well, that's why he's missing that E called an eardrum.
Yes. Well, hopefully he protected them with advance warning, which we don't always give everyone. So that's actually good because for you, our wonderful guest, we expressed a little empathy, which Peter knows nothing about, but trust me, I do. So that's why we gave you the heads up.
But that's why the biggest E isn't empathy; it's ego.
Yeah, that would be the one you would pick. Yes, that would be the one you would pick. I personally recommend that you bring on our expert because I know him and his ego is beautiful and lovely and not huge and atrocious like yours.
Well, before we do that, Now, one of the biggest items on the show, there's two items that you did not go over that we have to go over.
Lord.
These two items.
Oh, no.
One is
okay.
E stands for education.
I said education. You weren't paying attention.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did. I said it was the most important thing.
And then from your days on Greece.
Oh, my gosh. Well, of course, now that one I did leave out. But you can go back for the replay to so you know I'm right, that I did say education. But I'll let you have that one because we're so electrifying.
That was a weak knee, but okay. All right, so we're going to go to our show. Thank you to our guest. Now, I see your nickname is Ike, but is that your real name?
Boy, so first, let me just say Peter, Tracy, and Andrew as well, our great engineer today. I just want to thank you, all three of you, for the opportunity to talk with you today. So my parents gifted me and cursed me with a really long name. So my full name is Isaiah Wilson III. So I only learned how to spell the first name about a year and a half ago. So they luckily gave me a nickname, and so everybody calls me Ike. And so please, let's just call me just Ike.
And were you the president in the 1950s, from 1953 to 1961? Is that you, Ike?
That is not. Let's just make this clear right off the bat. That is not me. Though I have been very fortunate for years, particularly from my military background, to study a lot about the first great Ike Eisenhower, general and president, and along the way I've had a great fortune of getting to know the great granddaughter of the former president, Susan Eisenhower. We have regular, not regular. I don't want to turn this into a fish story, but every once in a while we'll have a conversation. I'm just graced to be able to talk to her every once in a while. And her great grandfather her grandfather is an amazing inspiration to me. So just to be able to talk with her and to get the stories that she's willing and able to share, wonderful. It's a great namesake to come long after and to try to live up to.
So let's go over a little bit about your current experience. But before we get there, nobody knows who you are. So
sure.
We want to go over a little bit about your biography, a quick version. We don't need to have a 25-minute conversation on it, but basically, when you started working and how you started and how you got to where you are today.
Great. So Tracy must have already told you that I was cursed with the gift of gab. So I'll try to keep these things as short as possible. I would call myself a lifelong national and global public affairs professional. That's really kind of my handle in my business. An LLC. It's called Wilson Wise Consulting, LLC, and Wise stands for Wilson Strategic Enterprises. It's basically what I like to call a civic intellectual strategic advisory enterprise. I'm going to explain that real quick for you and what that specifically means. It's a hybrid organization in a business that operates at the center or the intersection of a few things: public thought leadership, civic engagement, strategic consulting. It's designed to generate, apply, and advise on ideas that influence public discourse. I do a lot of work in the governance arena in institutional decision making. What I like to say that WISE does, and WISE is mostly me, but when a project or a puzzle grows in scope and time duration, I bring in folks I know and have worked with for 20, 25, 30 years over the course of my professional military and civilian service, and I bring them in. I call them WISE associates. In short, we call ourselves, forgive the French I'm about to speak here, we call ourselves wise asses in the most affectionate way. And what I try to do is I try to bring all my lucky and fortunate and sometimes unfortunate experiences over a 40-year public service career. This is actually this year, 2025 is. I hate that it challenges me and chills me even to say it, but I've been in the public service arena, military and civilian, for 40 years now. And like I said, 33 years of that 40 years of service as a commissioned officer in the United States Army. Graduated from West Point long ago when dinosaurs still walked the earth in 1989. Joined first 10, 11 years of my military career as an Apache helicopter pilot. Great experiences and frightening experiences for that 11 years. And then had a very rare, unique opportunity where the Army offered to send me to graduate school, full funded at the taxpayers' coverage. At the time, I was waist deep in mud in the Balkans during the Balkans crisis. This is back in the 1990s. Got a phone call on the field phone and said, hey, I was a young captain at the time that said, Captain Wilson, how would you like to let us send you to graduate school at a top-tier university and then come back to West Point to teach for at least 3 years, and we'd see where it goes from there. Didn't take me long to look around, realized I was up to my waist in mud and occasionally getting fired on. I immediately said yes, and then a few months later I was in Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, attending graduate studies. Went there for a master's degree. A couple of professors found me that I liked military officers, invited me over, and long story short, I turned a 2-year master's degree into 2 masters and a PhD. So I'm a doctor, a professor of political science. My specialties range between American government and grand strategy. I've created the West Point Grand Strategy Program during my long 11-year tenure as a tenure professor at the Academy. And when I wasn't in, throughout my 33 years, when I wasn't in the classroom teaching as a professor for the military, I was out in the field. I was a very active professor, and it's one of the things that kind of created my eclectic soldier, scholar, thinking doer type of lifestyle that I've brought to my own company over the last 10 months, again called Wilson Wise Consulting LLC. It's been a wild ride. I was talking to Tracy before, and for those of us who are old enough to remember the old Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Indiana Jones series, it's really kind of been my lifestyle. It's kind of been an Indiana Jones kind of lifestyle. When I wasn't a teacher and in the classroom teaching, I was out, doing the proverbial archaeological work. So I'm an active, actioning professor and a thinking doer, and I try to bring all that experience to the advisory and the consulting that I provide from individual all the way up to country level. And hopefully we'll get a chance for me to tell a couple or two or three stories that range from helping individuals lead through their transitions with foresight and intentionality. That's really what WISE is about, leading through transitions, even to the point where I've had scary opportunities, but really wonderful. And when you're looking at them through the rearview mirror, opportunities to advise full countries and regions. Of course, my military experience goes through that, the Iraq War, combat veteran, 2 tours in Iraq and a tour in Afghanistan, and working for the commanding general of United States Central Command. So anything pretty much greater Middle East, all the way up to the Caspian region of the Caucasus, and also the Indo-Pacific Trans region. That's pretty much been my backyard for the last 25 or plus years. So happy to talk about any and all of that, or wherever else, and I'll try to come up with a few E's along the way as well.
Well, just two things I want to point out to you about similarities. So my sister lives in Ithaca, and she's she lives in Ithaca, and she's the dean at State University of New York at Binghamton. So she's right there.
I do a lot of work with SUNY Binghamton. Love the place, and tell her. Of course, I'll have to say, please pass on to her, go Big Red for Cornell.
And then the other thing I want to tell you is my first cousin is an archaeologist.
Oh, man. If I had another life to live, Peter, it would be as a true to form archaeologist. So I try in all my work to get as close to my hands on the ground, digging for treasures as much as possible. My ground tends to be history, but there are a lot of treasures to be found there as well. But if I had another life to live, well, a couple. I'd, of course, want to be a rock star if I could, and then if not that, probably archaeology would be the direction I'd want to go in.
Well, my only experience is dirt bombs that I would throw at people. That's the only dirt experience I have. Anyway, so you have a very interesting background. So first question is, you currently have a company. What is the name of your current company?
So the current company is called Wilson Wise Consulting. It's a limited liability company, an LLC. And I formally formed the company when I retired from the military back in 2017. But as these things go, as soon as I retired, about a couple of weeks later, I went right back to federal service work as a civilian, as a Department of Defense civilian. So I put the LLC, of course, on the shelf, did nothing with it for the next 7, almost 8 years. And in late 2023, resigned from what is currently my last federal service job as a senior executive advisor to the commander of United States Special Operations Command, globally responsible for 80,000 U.S. Special Operations leader operators, as well as our enduring allies and coalition partners worldwide. I was the education executive and advisor to the commander for everything related to education, training, leader preparation and development for the U.S. and allies and partner special operations forces. And as part of that, I was also the professor and president of the Joint Special Operations University. I was by named into that job to help lead a transformation at a time when special operations had to help the nation realize that the world had changed. We were a little lagging behind it, and to first get the university in front of all that change so that U.S. Special Operations Command could follow it, to be vanguard to the change that the nation was a little behind on. So it was a wonderful, hectic, frightening, and really inspiring, all that rolled into one 3.5, 4 years, 4-year appointment. That's my latest federal job. Before that, I did similar job with the United States Army, working for the Army's think tank called the Strategic Studies Institute. I was the executive director of that organization. Does all the strategic and geostrategic and defense, global defense thinking and doing for the United States Army, works for the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army. By name to that job to, again, help the organization with foresight and intentionality work through a transition moment for the think tank, for the Army, for nation, not self. So that's kind of been the story of my professional life. People coming into the room wherever I am at the moment, hands piled with papers and wide-eyed with new puzzles. Typically called in, they put me in a room with no windows, give me a time hack of looking through all the papers and try to help find a pathway through the puzzles. Certainly to deal with overmatching problems, but more exciting and more importantly for a nation like ours, the United States of America, it's one thing to work with and overcome problems, but we're a leading power for the globe and the community of democracies. It's got to be more than just problem solving. It's got to be solve the problem, but then get ahead of it so you can actually paint a better world forward on your own positive aims. And so that's what I try to do. I talk more in terms of puzzles than in terms of problems. I like to get ahead and anticipate those things so that we can actually bring, improved destiny for ourselves. And, as the saying goes, for ourselves and our posterity, right? So I'll pause there. Peter.
Well, so you're pausing, but we've got about a minute left before we're going to be taking a quick break, Sue.
Oh, okay. No, keep going.
So I just want, in a minute or less, just kind of tell us, how do you help business owners?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, what I do is, with all that 40 years of experience, and again, it transcends my work, and my lifestyle lives at the center of a lot of other traditional stovepiped arenas. So military, civilian, public, private, governmental, non-governmental, and really specifically, I live in the world between defense development and diplomacy. And what I do for clients, from individuals to C-suite CEOs, founders, to heads of countries and everything in between, is I help them understand that there's a puzzle at the center of all that, understand what the transition moment is for them, and to help them realize that they're in a transition, either a positive one on their own names, or in most cases, the environment has changed, or an adversary, a competitor, or in the case of the military, a bona fide enemy wanting to do you harm has taken the advantage and the initiative from you. I help them understand what that is and to develop a vision, a strategy, and an action plan for overmatching the problems to get onto their own path of transition. So again, lead through transitions, and it's advisory, it's executive coaching, it's education, formal and informal training, all the way up through long, enduring relationships from the individual to, again, I've advised countries in this regard as well. And what I'd like to call and what I get most excited about in terms of those long, enduring relationships, that's more about mentoring, mentee and mentor relationships.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. We got to take a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Like no other station in the world. All right. Tracy, you said you want to pivot to something else, so take it away.
Well, I felt like, everything that you're doing is so amazing. But what really stood out to me when you were sharing your experience and your background and how you could continue to serve today is really feel so powerful around leadership. Can you help us maybe build that bridge between your background in the service and then your background in working with entrepreneurs, and what are the lessons that you're seeing in the form of leadership?
Yeah. So, again, 40 years and then 33 in the military. I retired from the military at the rank of full colonel. We call them full bird colonels. So, I went from the trenches, from, a young know-nothing cadet, second lieutenant, all the way up through the ranks, did all the right things, all the required things, excelled at all that, as you would expect your military to do, and then attained, the level of strategic leadership. So, at the door of that realm of near C-suite and C-suite executive leadership across all sectors, business and military. And so, from all that experience, what I like to try to bring in my advisory and consulting through Wilson Wise Consulting, and just my day-to-day interactions with folks is, I have a lot of experience that ranges from certainly real true battlefields and battle spaces, but I like to bring those lessons gathered for learning that come from battlefields across negotiation tables into boardrooms and then back again. Because I also I have an opportunity to do the reverse. I can bring leader lessons from my experiences as a budding small startup business entrepreneur, and bring that back into the defense and security enterprise, both here in the United States and globally, when I have an opportunity to speak with and advise international partners, NATO partners, et cetera, et cetera. I think from some of the things I've gathered over the years, the thing that comes to mind the most, that transcends all sectors, business, governmental, non-governmental, business, military, defense, security, everything in between, is the power of people. It's easy to get lost in spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are important. It's easy to get lost in the processes of all those things and the structures, especially at times of transition, especially when those transition times bring ambiguity and unknowns that always hit at the dollar bottom line. It's very easy, therefore, to focus on those very important things and then, unfortunately, lose track and emphasis on the most important thing. An old boss of mine, a wonderful mentor of mine over the years, loves to say that if you get a couple of things right, there's no problem you can't overcome, and more importantly, there's no puzzle you can't solve. And those two things are getting the communication lines right. So in the military vernacular and military speak, get the C2, the command and control, right, and you've got 80% of all puzzles solved, and certainly problems overmatched. What's more important than that comes prior to getting the communications line, the command and control, is making sure you got the right people on the bus. Get the people right, the people picking right, and frankly, I stopped believing in the no-win scenario. I don't mean that to sound arrogant, but there's truly in my 40 years, and I'm probably saying this, I'm knocking on wood right now, to not jinx myself. As soon as I say this, I'm going to run into a puzzle that I'm not going to be able to solve. But in all my experiences, there's not a puzzle that we've not been able to solve. It's all about getting the people right and having open, transparent communication and candid and trustworthy communication, especially at transition points, and especially when the transition is not your intended transition, but one that you're having to face. A headwind not that's denying you from getting from your point of embarkation to your point of debarkation, something that makes you change course that you're not planning to do. Those are the headiest points, and you can imagine the how that metaphor translates to operations under fire, right? When things go wrong, throw you off your plan. The great the big Ike, I'll call him the big Ike, right? And, General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower used to always say, plans are important, but planning is everything. And people, right? And no plan survives first contact, right? And that's what transitions are about, especially when the environmental changes or a competitor or an adversary or an enemy is throwing you off your trajectory. I may be weird over the years. I just have a knack for that. And the Army, in particular, the military service, really helped to gave me opportunities, both educational and training and everything in between, and the field experiences. I just, over the years, have developed what I'd like to believe is a humble confidence, emphasis on the humble, but a confidence no less. And, any of those Star Trek fans are out there, they're Trekkers, James T. Kirk and the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario. Kirk beat the no-win scenario because he changed the parameters because he didn't believe in the idea of an unsolvable problem. To take it out of Hollywood and to put it in more geopolitical terms, there's a wonderful individual by the name of Jean Monnet. He's considered the grandfather of the European Union and the United Nations. And at the heady times of trying to get a number of disparate, hyper-individual statehoods to try to come together into a semi-collective action, the European Union, you can imagine the transition and the challenge of that type of transition and transformation. Well, Jean Monnet lived by the credo and brought it to his work with sleeves rolled up, the credo being this: whenever faced with what is in real terms or equally dangerous, when it's a perceived unsolvable or intractable problem, enlarge the context. Enlarge the context of what's paralyzing you and your team at the moment, and that always opens up possibility frontiers. It opens the mind. It opens the action opportunities. I've lived by that credo, or tried my best to, and over the years I've been more successful than not to get to a point where, and I don't even know where this point came up, where I stopped having to find those opportunities. Those opportunities found me. Folks, leaders above me that I had the great honor and pleasure to work with and through and for would find me. And most of my jobs, both military and civilian, have all been by name type of efforts, being brought into some of the things that are already real historians. We have enough time past this now and past the events that are starting to write about this stuff. I had the fortune, I guess, a blended mix of fortune and misfortune of being at the center of some of the, proto-historical moments over the last 25, 30, even, 35 years. The Iraq War, Afghanistan War, the challenge of denying, defeating, dismantling the so-called heinous Islamic State, had opportunities to be brought in by name to help work those puzzles, work those challenging points. Had a great opportunity back in 2018 when I was a year into my retirement. I was called overseas through the now defunct USAID, United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the European Union. They were working for years prior with the country of the Republic of Macedonia, now North Macedonia. And Macedonia at the time was bidding for NATO membership and eventual consideration to become an EU member. Now, North Macedonia became a member of...
We've got to take a quick break. Sorry about that, Ike. We've got to take a quick break. You listen to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We have now a word from our sponsor. And you're back listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM with our guest, Ike. Tracy, take it away.
Yeah, so Ike, I know we had to shortcut your story, so I want to make sure you are able to finish that. So let us know the part two.
Okay, no, perfect. And I warned you all, I'm cursed with the gift of gab, so no problem getting the hook there. I'll wrap this up. Just as a quick, as a quick example of, the kind of work I do in transition. Again, Republic of Macedonia, this has been probably 10 years of the EU and the United States through USAID working with them to get them prepared, right kind of plans. And, come to find out about 90 days, they have 90 days left before consideration for membership to NATO. And they're missing some major national level plans, specifically national strategies and action plans for countering terrorism and countering violent extremism and radicalism within their own country. And at the time, 2018, you can imagine how important those plans are. They're important all the time, but at that particular time, we're fighting Al-Qaeda. We're at the height of the fight against Al-Qaeda and the so-called Islamic State. And so all these other consulting firms that they were normally going to, these big firms, I'm not going to name any, traditional firms with the traditional approaches, they all saw it as mission impossible, right? So they did the strategically sound, rational thing, and they said, no, not for us. We're not coming in. So it came around to someone recommending me, and I get a call. And long story short, I took Mission Impossible. In fact, at the point of getting ready to go on the plane, a rep from the European Union said, "You really believe you can actually pull this off?" And I said, "I've got a team. I've got I brought one person with me. I've scoped the problem, and I wouldn't take the mission if I didn't think it was doable." And so we went over. We spent 60 days, actually about 45. And I'm very proud of the mission because, long story short, they assessed in February of 2021, they became the country of North Macedonia. They became a full member of NATO, which means we succeeded by, more importantly than giving them national strategies, we helped them to form themselves, create teams, get the right people on the bus, on their bus, not ours, not mine, and help them. I brought confidence, humble confidence that we could get the mission done. Everyone for at least a year had told them it was impossible to get done. You go in with confidence. You go in. Of course, I went in with a plan, but most importantly was teaching. That old saying. Give a man a fish, give a man or a woman a fish, but more importantly, to teach them how to fish on their own. And very proud of the wise way. My approach is all about the latter. Helping to give the client a fishing lesson and help them become a master angler of their own accord. And so I'm very proud of that story. I'll pause there, Trace, so we can go in a different direction. But that's just one example at the highest end of what I do at the country level. I have other stories where I'm talking one-on-one with individuals going through some type of transition, and CEOs and founders of particularly commercial firms that are trying to transition into the broadly defined strategic defense and security arena with a disruptive technology. I've had some great experiences with helping them make that transition. So I'll pause there.
Well, okay, so that's amazing, and we're right up against our break again. So I think instead of asking you my next question, I'm just going to leave a teaser right here, which is when we come back from the break, I want to understand how you are implementing AI in your work with your own business and with your clients' businesses. But we're going to take a break and leave that right there for a minute, and we'll be back.
Welcome back to listen to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Back to you, Trace.
Okay, so yes, we're going to get to the artificial intelligence question, but first, Dr. Ike, I know that people are going to want to continue this conversation and learn more about what it is that you are doing and all the amazing things that you're working on, including, spoiler alert, a podcast that's coming soon. How can people get in touch with you?
Wonderful, Tracy. Thanks so much. So probably the easiest way is to go to my website, and it'll give you a full sense of who I am based on what I do, how, and why. And that website is WilsonWise, no dot, WilsonWise.com. WilsonWise.com. I'm also on Substack. Yep, WilsonWise.
Oh, no, go ahead. WilsonWise.com and Substack.
That's right. I'm also on Substack. My Substack is called Compound Security Unlocked, and that's .substack.com. You can find me there. And I'll also give you my email, my business email.
No, we're not going to let you give your email out because people will bombard you. They can find you on your website, and they can find you on your Substack.
Go to the website and Substack. You can find the email there, and I'm happy to take your call. You bet.
Yeah, we'll make them work for that email. How about that?
That's perfect. No worries.
All right, great. Well, now to the big question. Please let our audience know whether they are just starting their business or their industry has been disrupted by all the changes in the world these days. How are you using AI as a strategy in your business?
Wonderful. Thanks for the question. This is when I work with clients, particularly on the commercial side, frankly. Get different skepticism on the governmental and military side, but mostly on the commercial side, a lot more skepticism. Frankly, in many cases, fear of the unknown when it comes to artificial intelligence. Understandably, I mean, genuinely, we're afraid that, artificial intelligence, we really don't understand. The experts really don't understand how these models, these large learning models are learning. But this is technology, and part of the technological evolution and revolution is part of the American experience. It's part of our way. And so embracing and anticipating that change and with humble confidence, taking charge of artificial intelligence before it takes charge of you, I embrace it, and I encourage my clients to embrace it. I incorporate it in all of my work. I don't lean on it. It's all, as I said earlier, it's all about the human. It's all about people. People, you've heard the credo, human in the loop. The human has to be the loop. It's not just human in the loop, in the AI loop. The human has to be in charge. We have to bring judgment and wisdom, and that's not what these large learning models will ever bring, at least before we get to the so-called singularity. What I do is I bring AI in to do the mundane tasks, to kind of be a research assistant, to help me with editing, getting the I's dotted, the T's crossed, grammatical things. And I do use it for large number crunching type of endeavors. It's all about risk. It's about mitigating bad risk, and it's also about creating environments and opportunities for taking positive aims risk. I don't think talk enough about positive risk and taking risk. That's what entrepreneurship is, whether it's the business community or whether it's geopolitics. It's about positive aims risk taking for purpose and cause. AI can allow the human agent to get out of the morass and out of the tanglefoot in the weeds and actually elevate ourselves to that higher echelon of judgment and wisdom. And that's how we really put ourselves in charge of our own destiny, individually, countries, governments, businesses, for a better world of our own making. I'll pause there. But AI, we've got to embrace the technology to control it and command it.
Well, that's incredibly, and everything that you've talked about today has been incredibly, genuinely impressive, and we appreciate you so much and look forward to you. You are going to have an amazing podcast because you clearly have a lot to say in a good way. Peter?
The Civic Brief, I'm looking for it. It's coming soon, and thank you so much for helping me put that together.
Oh, Producer Podcast, the team at Producer Podcast is more than happy to support you. We are happy to do it. All right, Peter, happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy birthday, America.
Happy
we only have a minute or two left, so I may have to cut you off if we can't go too far along.
Yeah.
What has been the greatest challenge of your career?
Wow. The greatest challenge of my career. Well, as you've seen on this podcast, brevity.
I thought you were going to say finishing before 158, but that's okay.
In all seriousness, the hardest challenge has been my greatest pride and joy, and that's been helping people, individuals. Again, I've had great opportunity to advise and assist some people that, are historic now and being written about historically, to help folks gain that humble confidence and understand how to solve puzzles at the middle of the things that we have structurally stovepiped and separated. right? We have a Department of Defense, we have a Department of State, we have a Department of Homeland Security, we have military, civil, but the real opportunities lie at the intersection of all those things. And so helping people realize that the unifying purpose is between us. That's the thing that brought our country together 249 years ago. So I guess my greatest challenge and what's become my greatest pride in my calling is helping people live up to their form of a declaration of interdependency, if you will, right? And getting at those puzzles through our own positive aims that lie at the center of a lot of different problem sets. That's what makes America exceptional. We're at a grand transition moment, both internal to ourselves, with a lot of divisive gravitational forces trying to pull us apart. And then we're also the global leading power. And there's a double down of transitions and challenges ahead. We just have to go in with humble, confident, positive aims, and to get back on path towards those intersectionalities. E pluribus unum, from many one, right? Purpose driven. That's my value proposition. It's coming through the school of hard knocks, but in hindsight, looking back, it's my pride and joy. It's the heart of my calling.
Well, thank you very much. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KSS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Over and out. Thank you very much, Ike. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Andrew.